Here at the Ancient Whispers Ranch, we kind of think that agriculture's in a place where it needs to be reinvented. You know, we're growing a lot of things. We're consuming what we're growing in a lot of ways out of self-defense. Price of groceries these days, you know, it's out of control. And can we stop that blood loss by growing some of our own fruits and vegetables? You know, sure we can. We can tap into that prehistoric zen and grow a lot of our own food, and there's just something that tastes better about something that you've grown yourself. Agriculture needs to be reinvented. You see, they do a lot of things good, but we're in a state where things just aren't really sustainable. And we haven't been in a sustainable state for a long time. So, in reinventing agriculture, it's always good to take a step back. Look at our past. See where we've come from. In inventing something new, in the research and development process, a lot of times we just go back and make what's old new again. Put some new takes, look at it with a different set of eyes, and listen with our ears wide open. And sometimes we can reinvent something in our developing a modern agricultural method. And big ag, they're going to have to do it one way, and a lot of us are going to do it another. We don't have the big machinery. We don't have the labor available. So we've got to take different approaches. You know, a food forest in a lot of ways makes a lot of sense. We do use a little bit of hydroponics and some vertical gardens and things like that because it just makes sense. You know, maximize using your space. History is really important in reinventing agriculture. You know, there was a lot of good stuff all those years ago that's kind of been lost. You know, for whatever reason, some of these great ideas got pushed aside. And so I like to study on them, revisit those ideas, and take a fresh outlook and see if that can be applied in the Ancient Whispers Ranch. Because you're part of the solution to this too. If you're playing with different ideas and utilizing them and trying them out, then that can help us all in the future. We can all learn from each other. With our love of history and knowing that the past can be part of the future and part of the solution rather than the problem, I'd like to just take a few minutes and talk to you about another variation of an ancient garden that you might want to consider. Now, in a previous video, we did something basically on the Three Sisters with where you build up the mounds and you grow some corn, beans, and squash. And we encourage you to play with that. Maybe some potatoes and some other things to just try and play around with. In this method, it's called the Ancient Waffle Garden. And it's based on a Native American gardening approach from at least 800 years ago. Probably a lot further than that. And this one has a lot of good aspects to it. It utilizes water. It goes along with companion planting. It can be space saving if you're intercropping. It's really a very interesting method to explore if you're in a dry desert area. I would like to have got you outside, and I'd planned on actually digging some of these beds and getting set up for in a few weeks when I get to plant. Unfortunately, that fluffy white stuff that falls from the sky, it had different plans. So rather than push this video out and wait until I can do that, I wanted to just get it out there to you, get it kind of rolling around in your head so that you can maybe consider trying this gardening method out. Now, the ancient waffle garden, you lay it out in a grid. You know, think Lego My Egos. It looks sort of like that, but usually square. Now you dig down and you berm up in your little waffle shapes, okay? And those waffle shapes, then when it rains, those mounds will hold the water, and it'll catch the rain, focus it to the plant roots, and it'll soak down straight from there. Rather than running off or being dispersed, you get a better watering for your plant. So this can give you a few extra days between waterings. For a corn, bean, and squash type planting, you know, another theme on the Three Sisters. This is just for a more dry environment. The mounds, they're probably better for somewhere that gets a lot of rainfall or could be prone to flooding. So a 3 to 4 foot square, all hooked together in a waffle shape. You got to have enough room to get all the way around. So, you know, you probably don't want to be any wider than about 4 feet, and then have a little path around. And you can do this in different sections, you know, kind of create pathways if you want with that, but give yourself room on both sides. And then if you're doing, you know, tomatoes and basil or something, then you can go down to 2 foot squares. But remember, you're still only going to be able to reach easily in a couple of feet from each side. And so, you know, you don't want to be super wide with that. 2 or 3 2 by 2 squares next to each other is about as wide as you're going to want to do. This can also be great for a lot of different companion plantings and stuff. You know, and therefore it saves you space. You know, like we've mentioned before, you do some corn, beans, and squash in some of these. In others, you might do tomatoes and basil. There's a lot of different variations, and this is good to play with. You know, I mean, instead of tomatoes, maybe you could do some eggplant or some chilies or something. And there's a lot of good videos out there about good companion planting and what goes good together. You can plan out your garden and figure out the best companion plantings. You know, if companion planting, if it's done right and it's working, it can deter pests and all that good stuff. So here we are. We've got Three Sisters type thing, but we're in a sunken bed rather than a mound. And we've also got the companion planting. You could expand this out all over a large area and do it on a more permanent basis. You could plant a tree in it. For a few years, you've got some other plants growing below it. Ultimately, the tree shades it out and something else has to take its place. But with that big berm around the tree catching a lot of that water, it could really help that tree out. And in some ways, it sounds counterproductive to what you've heard, but for the drier areas, this could really be a great method. And it could be scalable to where you could do it on a commercial or semi-commercial type level. But one thing we know for sure, the waffle garden is a timeless, sustainable method that's well worth some of your consideration. It's diverse, productive, and space saving. And you can run it with a modern efficiency. So you might just consider it and try this method out in your garden this year.